Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turn out of poem 777, The Loneliness One Dare Not Sound. Now, right away, we will be back to poem 670. Some of you will maybe remember when we played this game. One need not be a chamber to be haunted. One need not be a house. The brain has corridors surpassing material place, far safer of a midnight meeting external ghost than its interior confronting that cooler host. Far safer through an abbey gallop, the stones a chase, than unarmed one's self encounter in lonesome place. Ourself behind ourself concealed should startle most. Assassin hid in our apartment be horror's least. The body borrows a revolver, he bolts the door, overlooking a superior specter or more. Now, it is possible that sometimes Emily will see loneliness as a potential friend. Other times, like in this poem, not so much. One of my students has suggested that we need to call Emily the queen of loneliness, and I'm very happy for the appellation to be applied here. Certainly, Emily thought of herself as a queen. Emily's always investigating all of the emotions that are profound for her. I mean, think of it this way. Here is an individual who spends her adult life in solitude. We've never called her a recluse because we shan't. But she definitely knows what it is to spend long periods of time alone. And she will speak now about the power of loneliness. She'll call this one of the greatest fears in the soul in a poem like this. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. Hopefully you've worked through our set of introductory comments as well as the preceding 776 poems. We just finished with 776, ironically, The Color of a Queen. Now, for background information here, Emily often is considered the great poet of psychology. Certainly, we're going to see the word consciousness get used in this poem as well as 24 total poems. Emily will argue there's two ways to deal with psychic trauma. One is to examine it, the other is to bury it. It isn't completely clear which one of these two approaches Emily is most conversant with or is going to suggest to us as well. However, she says it this way. The loneliness one dare not sound, and would as soon surmise as in its grave go plumbing to ascertain the size. The loneliness whose worst alarm is least itself should see, and perish from before itself for just a scrutiny. The horror not to be surveyed, but skirted in the dark, with consciousness suspended and being under lock. I fear me, this is loneliness. The maker of the soul, its caverns and its corridors, illuminate or seal. Now, one can't read a poem like this and not pay tribute to, of course, the great Dante and his Divine Commedia, especially, of course, that journey through the Inferno, where there's all those caverns and corridors. Emily clearly playing the game. Remember, Dante will begin his classic by being lost in a wet, dark wood. In other words, for Emily, loneliness is hell that has to be either explored, examined, or sealed, as in buried. She'll begin, of course, by repeating loneliness and then moving to horror. The loneliness, notice one is capitalized. One dare not sound. Now, loneliness, just to prove that my student was 100% correct, that Emily is the queen of loneliness as a poet. You'll remember this word from 405, from 590. When we get to 903, poem 903, we'll come back to this study. I hide myself within my flower that fading from your vase, you unsuspecting feel for me, almost a loneliness. We'll see the poem, the word again, loneliness, in 1068. We'll see it in 1116. There is another loneliness that many die without. Not want of friend occasions it, nor or circumstance of lot, but nature sometimes thought, and whoso it befall is richer than could be revealed by mortal numeral. We'll see the word loneliness again in 1133. We'll see it again in 1179. So here, this is a key word for us. The loneliness, notice one capitalized, dare not sound. Now notice, we're going to go from sound to plumbing to surveyed, right? In other words, we know that there is loneliness. What are you going to do with it? You're going to plummet it? You're going to sound it? You're going to try and figure out how deep does it go? She says, and would as soon surmise as in its grave go plumbing to ascertain the size. In other words, many of my students have pointed out that they can be in this building with lots and lots of people around. They are not alone, but they are lonely. It seems there is a difference between these two things. One can be alone and not lonely. One can be crowded with people and be lonely. Well, then what is it to be lonely? She says, you can plumb this. You can start going to the depths of this. Why do I feel so not just alone, but lonely? And notice she'll come back to it. The loneliness whose worst alarm is least itself should see. Notice we're back to her study of Plato. We're back to her study of Plato's Republic. We're back to her study of Plato's Republic, Book 7, and the cave allegory. And the quest of, what have we called it? Perspicacity. That ability to gain some kind of insight. Outside, I can see you sitting there. Insight, what? I roll my eyes into the back of my head and see my brain? No. Insight, as in understanding. The ability or the capacity to see. Here it's the question of seeing the value of loneliness, or its loss of value, is lest itself should see and perish from before itself for just the scrutiny. So notice we go from sounding to summarizing to plumbing, and now to scrutiny, and then the break, and then the horror. Notice capitalized horror, taking us back, you'll remember, to our study of 5:12. You guys will remember this one, I'm sure, as well, when she said, the soul has bandaged moments. When too appalled to stir, she feels some ghastly fright come up and stop to look at her, salute her with long fingers, caress her freezing hair, sip goblin from the very lips the lover hovered o'er. Unworthy that a thought so mean accost a theme so fair, the soul has moments of escape, when bursting all the doors she dances like a bomb abroad and swings upon the hours, as do the bee delirious born, long dungeoned from her rose touch, liberty that know no more but noon in paradise. The soul's retaken moments, when felon led along with shackles on the plummet feet and staples in the song, the horror welcomes her again. These are not braid of tongue. This use of the word horror also makes us think, of course, of Conrad's classic Heart of Darkness. And what is it Kurt says at the end of his life? The horror, the horror. We'll get, of course, to the dark, ironically, in the next line. The horror not to be surveyed, but skirted in the dark. By the way, skirted only gets used one time in her poetry, and it's here. Skirted in the dark. Notice dark capitalized. With consciousness suspended. Now, consciousness is an important word for Emily. She'll use it in 24 of her poems. We're going to see it when we hit 894. So we'll just share this one with you to set you up for what's coming. Of consciousness, her awful mate, the soul cannot be rid, as easy the secreting her behind the eyes of God. The deepest hid is sighted first, and scant to him the crowd, what triple lenses burn upon the escaping from God. And when we see the this word again, consciousness, in 1323, we'll come back to it again. I never hear that one is dead without the chance of life, afresh annihilating me, that makest belief, too mighty for the daily mind, that tilling its abyss, had madness had it once or twice, the yawning consciousness. Beliefs are bandaged, like the tongue, when terror were told, is any tone commensurate would strike us instant dead. I do not know the man so boldly dare in lonely place, that awful stranger consciousness deliberately face. She says, I fear me this. Now, this consciousness, as she comes to it, the horror not to be surveyed but skirted in the dark, with consciousness suspended and being under lock, I fear me this. Now, I fear me, or I fear, is used in 8 of her poems. She'll use this phrase in 802 when we come to that study. Again, we'll pick up this idea of what it is that she fears. Time feels so vast that were it not for an eternity, I fear me this circumference engross my vanity, to his exclusion who prepare by processes of size for the stupendous vision of his dimeters. She says, I fear me this is loneliness, the maker, as in creator, of the soul, its caverns and its corridors, illuminate or seal. Again, illuminate, to examine, seal, to bury. I think the point she's making in this poem is this at 2a. Life is a coming to terms with loneliness, with fears, with horrors. And of course, Freud would say as much just a few years later after this poem was written by Emily Dickinson. At 2b, well, think about all of our word choices there. I'm sure these are words you circled as well. Sound, surmise, plumbing, surveyed, illuminate, all these powerful words to suggest that loneliness is worth looking into. At 3a, well, all the other lonely poems, the loneliest poems, if you will, to again quote my student, the Emily Queen of Loneliness, 405, 590, 903, 1068, 1116, 1133, 1179, all of these are poems that deal with loneliness. I'll let you guys run them to ground in your studies. Finally, to own a poem like this at 3b, what was a time in your life when you had to come to terms with loneliness and the fears that were involved? Did you work with illumination and examination, or did you seal it and bury it? I hope Emily's challenging you. Thank you.